Welcome to World Rare Coins Vault, where every old coin has a story and every date could reveal something truly fascinating. Today, we're looking at the top 5 rare UK 1 penny coins, featuring the 1890 in fine condition, 1896 in circulated condition, 1898 in outdated condition, 1879 in old condition, and 1917 in good condition. These historic pennies come from remarkable periods of British history, and we'll explore their designs, condition, rarity, collector appeal, and exciting potential market values. So stay with us, because one of these old pennies might be the coin you've been searching for. The United Kingdom 1 penny 1890 in fine condition, a Victorian-era coin that carries more than a century of history. For collectors, coins like this are fascinating because they connect us directly with Britain's past, and when an example survives with clear details and attractive overall condition, its appeal can rise significantly. So stay with me as we explore the story behind this historic penny, examine its portraits and design, look at its weight and condition, and discuss an exciting hypothetical modern market scenario showing values reaching into thousands of US dollars. The 1891 penny belongs to the long Victorian period of British coinage, when Queen Victoria was on the throne, and the United Kingdom was one of the world's major economic and political powers. During this era, the penny was an important everyday denomination used by ordinary people for small purchases and transactions. Think about how many hands an 1890 penny could have passed through during its working life. It may have been used in a Victorian shop, carried in a worker's pocket, placed in a household money box, or eventually saved by someone who recognized its historical importance. More than 130 years later, that same small copper coin can become an attractive piece of British numismatic history. When we turn our attention to the portrait side, the coin presents the famous young head portrait of Queen Victoria. Her portrait represents the monarch who ruled Britain for more than 6 decades, making Victorian coins instantly recognizable to collectors around the world. Around the portrait are inscriptions associated with Queen Victoria, creating a design that combines royal identity with the traditional appearance of 19th century British coinage. On the reverse side, we see the classic seated Britannia design. Britannia is shown seated with her shield and trident, creating one of the most recognizable images in British coin history. The combination of Queen Victoria on the obverse and Britannia on the reverse gives this penny a powerful historical character. The weight of the 1890 British 1 penny is another important characteristic for collectors. A standard Victorian bronze penny from this period was produced to a traditional specification, with a weight of approximately 9.4 grams. The diameter is also substantial compared with many modern small denomination coins, giving the penny a solid feeling when held in the hand. For collectors, checking the weight, size, edge, and overall construction can be useful when authenticating an old coin. A genuine 19th century penny should have the appropriate characteristics for its type, although normal wear, corrosion, and environmental damage can affect its appearance over the decades. This is why serious collectors do not judge an old coin purely by how shiny or attractive it looks. They look at the complete combination of design, metal, weight, date, condition, and authenticity. Now we come to one of the most exciting parts of this story, rarity and condition. An 1890 penny is more than simply an old coin because its collector appeal depends heavily on the quality of the individual example. A coin described as being in fine condition will normally show noticeable circulation wear, but important design elements should still remain visible. On the portrait, you would want to see a recognizable image of Queen Victoria, while the reverse should retain the major features of Britannia and the surrounding lettering. Collectors also pay close attention to the date, because a clearly readable 1890 date is essential when identifying the coin. Surface quality matters as well. Heavy scratches, holes, severe corrosion, cleaning marks, or other damage can reduce desirability, while a naturally aged example with attractive color and balance where it can be much more appealing. This is also where the idea of rarity needs to be understood correctly. Being more than a century old does not automatically make a coin worth thousands of dollars. The real interest comes from the combination of age, scarcity, condition, demand, authenticity, and collector competition. An ordinary circulated example can be considerably different from an exceptional certified specimen. When collectors are competing for a particularly attractive or unusual example, prices can rise well beyond what someone might expect from the denomination printed on the coin. That is why experienced collectors examine the details rather than simply assuming every old penny is extremely valuable. For today's market value discussion, let's use an exciting hypothetical example rather than presenting these figures as verified auction prices. Imagine that an especially attractive 1890 penny in fine condition appears in a specialist sale and attracts strong international attention. In a fictional high-demand scenario, collectors might imagine a value around $1,500 or $1,500. A particularly appealing example with excellent original surfaces and strong details could, in our hypothetical scenario, be discussed at $3,000 or $3,000. An exceptionally desirable specimen with unusually strong preservation, impressive eye appeal, and professional certification could be imagined reaching $5,000 or $5,000 in an extreme promotional scenario. These figures are illustrative only and should not be treated as a normal market price of an 1890 penny. The actual value of any individual coin depends on its genuine condition, authenticity, variety, provenance, and real auction demand. And this is exactly why collectors should never rely on a dramatic price tag alone. If you have an 1890 penny, the first step is to protect it. So, when we look at the 1890 United Kingdom 1 penny in fine condition, we are looking at far more than a single old copper coin. We are looking at a small survivor from the Victorian age, carrying the portrait of Queen Victoria and the timeless image of Britannia. Its weight, traditional design, age, and condition all contribute to its numismatic interest. While dramatic values such as $1,500, $3,000, or even $5,000 can be used in a hypothetical high-demand scenario for exceptional examples, collectors should always remember that these are illustrative figures rather than guaranteed market values. The real excitement comes from discovering exactly what you have, studying its condition, and finding out how collectors and the market actually respond to it. Next up, the 1896 United Kingdom 1 penny, examining its historical background, the portrait and reverse design, its weight, circulated condition, rarity, and collector appeal, before looking at some exciting hypothetical dollar values that show just how dramatic the market can become when demand focuses on a particularly desirable example. The 1896 penny was produced during the Victorian era, a period that transformed Britain through industrial growth, expanding cities, international trade, and major technological developments. Queen Victoria had already been on the throne for decades by this point, and her image had appeared on British coinage throughout her reign. The penny itself was one of the most familiar denominations in everyday British commerce. It could have been carried by workers, families, shopkeepers, and travelers, passing from one person to another as part of ordinary daily life. When you hold an 1896 penny today, you are holding an object that potentially traveled to Victorian Britain more than 120 years ago. It may have purchased a small item, sat in a shopkeeper's till, or been saved in a household purse before eventually disappearing into a collection. That long journey is one of the reasons old pennies remain so popular among collectors. On the obverse or head side, the coin features Queen Victoria, the monarch whose reign became one of the defining periods in British history. The Victorian portrait on these later bronze pennies gives the coin a distinctive appearance, showing the Queen in the mature stage of her reign. The surrounding lettering identifies the monarch and reinforces the royal character of peace. Turning the coin over reveals the famous Britannia design, one of the most recognizable symbols ever used on British coinage. Britannia sits proudly with her shield and trident, representing strength, stability, and Britain itself. Around her are the inscriptions and denomination details that complete the reverse. Even after years of circulation, these central elements can remain surprisingly recognizable, and that combination of Queen Victoria and Britannia give the 1896 penny a visual identity that immediately separates it from modern British pennies. The physical specifications of the coin are also important when evaluating an example. The traditional Victorian bronze 1 penny had a weight of approximately 9.4 grams and a diameter of around 30.8 millimeters. These measurements help collectors identify the correct type and can also provide an additional check when questions about authenticity arise. However, an old circulated coin can sometimes show changes caused by wear, dirt, corrosion, or environmental exposure. So small differences should not automatically be interpreted as evidence of a fake. The weight should be considered alongside the design, metal, dimensions, lettering, and overall construction. For anyone seriously interested in Victorian pennies, having a small digital scale and a way of accurately measuring coins can be useful tools for basic examination. Now, let's talk about the condition of this particular 1896 penny, because circulated condition creates a completely different collecting story from a brilliant, nearly untouched specimen. A circulated coin has clearly spent time in the real world. Its high points may be worn. The portrait may have lost some of its finer details, and Britannia's features can become softer with use. The original bronze color may also have changed naturally over the decades, producing darker brown or mixed tones. Scratches, small marks, and surface imperfections can appear as well. Now, for the exciting part, what can 1896 penny be worth in today's dollar market? Here we need to make one thing absolutely clear. The following high dollar figures are fictional examples for an exciting YouTube presentation and should not be treated as verified current auction prices. Imagine a hypothetical situation where a collector become extremely interested in a particular 1896 penny because of its attractive color, unusual characteristics, or exceptional provenance. In that fictional high-demand scenario, a circulated example might be presented as having an attention-grabbing value of $1,000 or $1,000 US. A more attractive specimen with stronger details could be imagined at $2,500 or $2,500. A highly desirable example with unusual features and strong collector competition could be given a dramatic hypothetical figure of $5,000 or $5,000. In an extreme fictional scenario, an exceptional example could even be promoted around $7,500 or $7,500. Again, these are illustrative figures created for the video concept, not guaranteed values for an ordinary circulated 1896 penny. The reality is that the actual value of your coin could be much lower, and the only reliable way to establish a meaningful market value is to compare the exact coin with genuine recent sales and, where necessary, obtain professional identification or grading. A circulated 1896 penny should therefore be approached with enthusiasm, but also with realism. If you discover one in an old collection, don't immediately clean it because you think polishing will make it more valuable. Cleaning can damage the original surface and may reduce its desirability among serious collectors. Instead, handle it carefully by the edges, keep it in a suitable protective holder, and avoid harsh chemicals, abrasive materials, and unnecessary rubbing. Collectors should also examine both sides under good lighting and use magnification when appropriate. Look carefully at the date, lettering, portrait, Britannia, and the overall surface. If you notice anything unusual, such as an apparent striking error, strange lettering, or an unexpected feature, don't try to modify the coin yourself. In the world of old coins, originality can be one of the most valuable qualities a collector can find. The 1896 United Kingdom 1 penny is therefore a wonderful example of how a simple denomination can become a fascinating historical object. Its connection with Queen Victoria, its classic Britannia reverse, its substantial Victorian bronze construction, and its long journey through circulation all contribute to its appeal. Even when heavily circulated, the coin can still tell a powerful story about the Britain of more than a century ago. And while fictional figures such as $1,000, $2,500, $5,000, and $7,500 can create an exciting high-demand scenario for the video, collectors should always separate entertainment figures from genuine market evidence. Next up, the year 1898 was part of the late Victorian period, when Britain was experiencing enormous changes. Industry, transport, communication, and international trade were developing rapidly, while Queen Victoria had already ruled for more than 60 years. The obverse of this historic coin carries the portrait of Queen Victoria, representing the monarch who became synonymous with the Victorian age. By 1898, Victoria was an elderly monarch, and the portrait appearing on the later bronze pennies reflects the mature period of her reign. Around the portrait are the traditional inscriptions identifying the Queen. This royal image is one of the reasons Victorian British coins are so recognizable. Even when a coin has suffered considerable wear, the basic portrait can often still be identified, allowing collectors to connect the physical object with the long reign of Queen Victoria. Turn the coin over, and the famous figure Britannia appears. Seated proudly with her shield and trident, Britannia became one of the defining images of British coinage. Her presence on the penny represented strength, identity, and the enduring character of Britain. The reverse design is particularly attractive because it combines a strong central figure with surrounding lettering and denomination information. On an old and heavily worn example, some of the finer details may have disappeared, but the overall design can remain recognizable. For collectors, that surviving imagery is part of the charm. Every mark and every softened detail can be evidence of the coin's long journey through circulation. The physical specifications of the 1898 one penny also make it easy to appreciate its substantial Victorian construction. A standard Victorian bronze penny of this type weighs approximately 9.4 grams and measures about 30.8 millimeters in diameter. When placed in the hand, it feels considerably larger and heavier than many modern low-denomination coins. Now let's focus on the condition described here as outdated or heavily worn. This is an important point because condition can have a major influence on collector interest and value. A coin that has spent many years circulating can lose much of its original detail. Queen Victoria's portrait may become smooth around the highest points. Britannia's features may become less defined, and parts of the lettering can show significant wear. The bronze surface may have darkened naturally over time, and there may be marks, scratches, spots, or areas of corrosion. A worn Victorian penny can look like something that genuinely traveled to the 19th century rather than an object that has spent its entire existence untouched in a cabinet. However, age and wear should not automatically be confused with rarity. An 1898 penny is historically old, but an old coin is not necessarily rare. True rarity depends on factors such as the number of surviving examples, condition, varieties, errors, originality, and collector demand. Two coins of the same date can have dramatically different values if one is heavily worn and the other has exceptional detail. Similarly, a genuine unusual variety or minting error can make a coin much more interesting than an ordinary example. This is why experienced collectors study individual coins carefully instead of relying only on the date printed on the surface. Now comes the exciting market value section. To keep this video entertaining, let's imagine a fictional high-demand scenario. The following figures are illustrative and are not verified market prices for an ordinary 1898 penny. Suppose a particularly interesting 1898 example attract attention because of an unusual feature, attractive natural surfaces, or exceptional provenance. In this hypothetical scenario, collectors might imagine a value of $1,200 or $1,200 US. If a stronger example generated intense competition, the fictional value could rise to $2,500 or $2,500. An exceptionally desirable specimen might be presented in this dramatic scenario at $4,000 or $4,000. And if an extraordinary example combined unusual characteristics, excellent preservation, and strong international collector demand, a fictional headline value of $6,000 or $6,000 could make for an exciting auction-style story. But remember, these figures are deliberately fictional for entertainment and should not be presented as guaranteed values. A normal worn or heavily circulated 1898 one penny could be worth considerably less. The genuine market value depends on the exact coin, its authenticity, condition, variety, and actual buyer demand. The most reliable approach is to compare the coin with documented sales of similar examples and, when necessary, seek an opinion from a qualified coin dealer, numismatist, or professional grading service. A dramatic online asking price does not automatically mean someone will actually pay that amount. If you own an 1898 penny, one of the most important things you can do is avoid cleaning it. Keep it away from excessive moisture and avoid repeatedly touching the surfaces with your fingers. If you suspect that your coin has an unusual variety or error, photograph both sides clearly and have it examined before making any attempt to alter it. It is also useful to study the coin under good lighting. Look closely at the final digits of the date, the lettering around Queen Victoria's portrait, the details of Britannia, and the overall surface. Compare the coin with reputable reference examples of the same type. If you find something that looks unusual, do not immediately assume that it is a rare error. Old coins have developed scratches, dents, corrosion, and other forms of damage that sometimes look like minting errors. Careful comparison and professional examination can help separate genuine varieties from ordinary damage. The 1898 United Kingdom 1 penny is ultimately a fascinating piece of Victorian history. Even an outdated or heavily worn example can carry tremendous historical character because it survived from an era when Queen Victoria ruled Britain and physical pennies were part of everyday life. Its approximately 9.4-gram bronze construction, recognizable royal portrait, and famous Britannia reverse make an instantly appealing coin for anyone interested in British numismatics. And although fictional figures such as $1,200, $2,500, for $1,000 and $6,000 can create an exciting high-demand story for this video, real-world values must always be based on a specific coin and genuine market evidence. Next up, the 1879 United Kingdom 1 penny takes us back to a time when Queen Victoria was firmly on the British throne. Victorian Britain was expanding rapidly, and the humble penny played an important role in everyday life. Today, we are taking a close look at this historic coin, exploring its background, the royal portrait, the famous Britannia reverse, its weight and physical characteristics, the significance of its old condition, its rarity and collector demand, and an exciting hypothetical market value scenario in US dollars. So, if you have an 1879 penny in an old collection, keep watching, because this small bronze coin could be far more interesting than it first appears. The year 1879 belongs to an important chapter of the Victorian era. Britain was experiencing enormous industrial and social change, with railways connecting communities, factories expanding production, and cities continuing to grow. At the center of this period was Queen Victoria, whose reign had already lasted for many decades. The 1 penny was an everyday denomination used by people from many different backgrounds. It could have been carried by a laborer, a shopkeeper, a farmer, a traveler, or a child, and it could have passed through hundreds of hands during its lifetime. Every old penny, therefore, has the potential to carry a unique story. An 1879 penny may have purchased an everyday item more than 140 years ago, rested in a Victorian shop till, traveled between towns, or eventually been placed aside and forgotten. That connection to ordinary life is one of the most fascinating qualities of historic British coinage. When we look at the head side, the first thing that catches the eye is Queen Victoria. Her portrait represents the monarch whose name became permanently connected with 19th century Britain. The obverse carries a traditional royal inscription surrounding her image, creating a design that immediately identifies the coin as Victorian British currency. Even if the coin is in old or worn condition, the portrait can still provide an impressive visual connection to the past. When you realize that this image was struck into bronze in 1879 and has survived through more than a century of changing times, the coin suddenly becomes much more than a simple penny. It becomes a tangible reminder of an era that has completely disappeared. Turn the coin over and the reverse reveals Britannia, one of the most famous designs in British numismatic history. Britannia is shown seated with her shield and trident, creating an image that symbolizes Britain and its strength. The surrounding lettering and denomination complete the reverse design. On an old condition example, the highest points of Britannia may be noticeably worn, and some smaller details can become soft or difficult to see. The physical characteristics of this penny are equally interesting. A standard Victorian bronze 1 penny from this period weighs approximately 9.4 grams and measures around 30.8 millimeters in diameter. Its substantial size gives a satisfying presence compared with many modern low-denomination coins. Collectors often use weight, diameter, edge characteristics, metal appearance, and design details when examining old pennies. These features can help identify the correct coin type and may provide useful clues when checking authenticity. However, measurements should always be considered together rather than used alone, because environmental exposure, wherein previous damage can affect an old coin's condition and appearance. Now, let's talk about the old condition of this particular 1879 penny. A coin that has spent many decades in circulation will naturally show signs of its journey. The portrait of Queen Victoria may be worn on the highest points. The lettering may have softened, and Britannia's shield, trident, and surrounding details may no longer have the sharpness seen on a high-grade example. The bronze may have developed a dark brown color or natural patina, and small scratches, marks, or areas of surface were maybe visible. To some people, these imperfections might make the coin look less attractive. To a collector, however, they can tell an important story. This is a coin that has survived real life, and its worn appearance may be evidence of the many years it spent circulating before finally becoming a collectible. Now we reach the part that always gets collectors excited, the potential market value. For this video, let's imagine an entertaining fictional high-demand auction scenario. These figures are deliberately hypothetical and should not be treated as verified market prices for an ordinary 1879 penny. Imagine that an interesting 1879 example attracts strong attention because of an unusual characteristic, impressive, or particularly attractive natural surfaces. In this fictional scenario, collectors could imagine a value of $1,000 or 1,000 US dollars. A more desirable example might be presented at $2,500 or $2,500. If a rare variety or exceptional feature were discovered, the fictional value could rise to $4,000 or $4,000. In an extreme high-demand scenario, an outstanding and genuinely scarce example could even be imagined at $6,000 or $6,000. These figures are for entertainment and storytelling only. They are not a guarantee that a circulated or old-condition 1879 penny is worth those amounts. A careful examination can also be extremely rewarding. Look closely at the date, the shape and placement of the lettering, Queen Victoria's portrait, Britannia's shield and trident, and the overall condition of the surfaces. If something appears unusual, compare it with reliable reference examples. Remember that scratches, dents, and corrosion can sometimes look like minting errors, so an unusual appearance does not automatically mean that a coin contains a rare variety. Professional examination is particularly worthwhile if the coin appears significantly different from standard examples. The 1879 United Kingdom 1 penny is ultimately a remarkable little survivor from Victorian Britain. Its connection to Queen Victoria, its iconic Britannia reverse, its substantial bronze construction, and its long history make it an appealing piece for collectors. Even an old and heavily worn example can preserve the atmosphere of a world that existed more than 140 years ago. And while fictional high-demand figures such as $1,000, $2,500, $4,000, and $6,000 can make an exciting story for a YouTube video, the real value of any coin must always be based on its exact characteristics and genuine market evidence. Next up, the year 1917 was a remarkable moment in British history. The First World War was still underway, and everyday life had been deeply affected by the conflict. Britain was dealing with shortages, changing industries, military mobilization, and enormous pressure on the economy. Yet ordinary commerce continued, and the humble penny remained an important part of daily transactions. A 1917 penny could have been carried by a worker traveling to a factory, used by a family purchasing necessities, or passed through a busy shop during wartime Britain. Every surviving coin, therefore, represents a small physical connection to an extraordinary period. When you look at the date 1917, you are not simply looking at a number. You are looking at a moment in history. On the head side, the coin carries a portrait of King George V, who was Britain's monarch during the First World War. His reign began in 1910, and his portrait appeared on British coinage throughout this important period. The obverse design gives a penny a strong historical identity because it immediately connects the coin to the early 20th century and the wartime reign of George V. Even on a circulated coin, the main features of the portrait and surrounding lettering can usually remain recognizable. For collectors, this makes the coin visually appealing and historically meaningful, especially when considering the circumstances in which it originally circulated. Britannia is seated proudly with her shield and trident, symbolizing Britain and its enduring identity. The reverse includes a denomination and surrounding details that complete the design. On a good condition example, much of the major design should remain visible, although some areas may show moderate wear from circulation. The combination of King George V on the obverse and Britannia on the reverse gives this 1917 penny a distinctive appearance that collectors can instantly recognize. The physical specifications of the coin are also important. A standard British bronze 1 penny from this period weighs approximately 9.4 grams and measures around 30.8 millimeters in diameter. This substantial size gives the coin a solid feeling when held. Collectors can use the weight and diameter as part of a basic identification and authenticity check, alongside the design, edge, and metal characteristics. However, measurement should always be considered together because old coins can experience wear, environmental damage, and other changes during their long lives. If an example appears significantly unusual, professional examination is always preferable to making a conclusion from one measurement alone. Now, let's focus on the good condition of this particular 1917 penny. Good condition can make an old coin considerably more attractive because important design features remain visible while the coin still shows the evidence of circulation. You may be able to clearly recognize King George V portrait, read much of surrounding lettering, and see Britannia's shield, trident, and seated figure on the reverse. The coin may have some surface marks, mild scratches, or color changes, but the overall design remains strong. It can still be appealing to collectors. Original bronze color and natural patina can also add character, particularly when the surface has not been aggressively cleaned. The word rare is often used when discussing old coins, but collectors need to understand what rarity really means. A coin being more than 100 years old does not automatically make it extremely rare. Its collector value depends on factors such as surviving examples, condition, varieties, genuine errors, originality, and demand. A common circulated example can be relatively affordable, while a scarce variety or exceptional specimen can attract significantly more attention. This is why the exact condition and characteristics of an individual 1917 penny are so important. Now for the exciting market value section. To create the high-demand presentation requested for this video, let's imagine a fictional auction scenario. The following values are made-up examples for entertainment and should not be treated as verified current market prices. Suppose a particularly attractive 1917 penny in good condition attracts international collector interest. In this hypothetical scenario, it might be described with an exciting value of $1,000 or $1,000. A more impressive example with stronger details and excellent eye appeal could be imagined at $2,500 or $2,500. If a genuinely unusual variety were discovered, our fictional auction scenario could push the number to $4,000 or $4,000. And in an extreme high-demand situation involving an exceptionally desirable and scarce specimen, the fictional headline could reach $6,000 or $6,000. These dramatic figures are fictional and should not be mistaken for the normal value of an ordinary 1917 penny. In the real market, the value of a particular coin can be much lower or, in exceptional circumstances, higher depending on its exact characteristics. The most important factors are genuine condition, authenticity, variety, surface quality, and actual collector demand. A high asking price on an online listing does not prove that the coin is sold for that amount. Collectors should look for credible evidence of completed sales and seek professional advice if they believe their coin could be especially valuable. Take time to study the coin under good lighting. Examine the date, King George V portrait, the lettering, and the Britannia reverse. Look for unusual shapes, missing details or characteristics that appear different from normal examples. But remember that damage and wear can sometimes create misleading appearances. A scratch or dent is not necessarily a minting error. Careful comparison with reliable reference examples is the safest way to determine whether something genuinely unusual is present. The 1917 1 penny is therefore a fascinating piece of British history. It comes from a period when Britain was experiencing the enormous challenges of the First World War, and its King George V portrait connects it directly with that era. Its approximately 9.4 gram bronze construction, familiar Britannia reverse and good condition appearance make it an interesting coin for collectors who enjoy historical pieces. And although fictional figures such as $1,000, $2,500, $4,000, and $6,000 can create an exciting high-demand auction story, Remember that these numbers are illustrative only and do not represent guaranteed market values.